This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I always start my day with that song, especially on days that I'm gonna be a storyteller. It reminds me that when we tell our stories, when we share our stories, we let our light shine. This is our first storytelling class. I can't tell you how excited I am. So here we go. Greetings and salutations, Martians. My name is Mr. Wayne, and I'm from Marsh Youth Theater. And we here at MYT decided that it was maybe a good time to start sharing stories, to start telling each other stories about heroes, about legends, about our families and our communities. And so we decided that every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, right about now, every Wednesday, we're going to have storytelling time. And basically that means we're going to share stories, not just me, though I will tell you a story every Wednesday, but we also want to hear your stories. And we have several ways we can do that. We can do that here on Zoom, or we can do it by writing into either our Instagram, which is #MarchYouthTheater, or the email address, which is mytdirector@themarsh.org. Make sure if you do send something in to us, which we would really like to have, make sure you have permission from your parents. So like I was saying, I am a storyteller. And whether you not you know it, you are a storyteller too. And I love telling all types of stories. I love telling fairy tales. I love telling comic book stories. I will tell stories about just about anything. But my favorite thing is to tell stories about when I grew up. And that is what we're going to get to a little later. But first, let's see who's here. Who's here right now? I know Mr. Brian is here. Are you there, Mr. Brian?
I am here, Mr. Wayne.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
I am excited. I'm excited. Who do we have here?
Let's see here. Let's go down the list. It looks like we have 2 young fellas under the name Rebecca Fisher. I'm going to unmute you. Can you say hi to Mr. Wayne?
Hi. Hi. No.
What are your names?
Hey.
I'm Gus. Oh, my name is Fled.
Awesome.
Hey, guys.
All right, then it looks like we've got some folks here under the name Candace Johnson.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
So what's your name?
Layla.
Layla.
Then let's see here. Oh, we know this name. This is Miss Rebecca. Who do we have here under Miss Rebecca's name? Oh, she doesn't want to unmute.
That's okay.
All right, that's all right. Let's see here. We've got, Miss Lynn is here.
Ah.
Hey.
Hey.
So great to see you.
It's great to be seen by you, Lynn. Thanks for coming. Lynn's a teacher, you guys. Lynn is a real teacher, so we all have to behave ourselves.
Awesome. And then it looks like we have the real Miss Rebecca.
Ah.
All right.
Right on.
Right. And then, we've got Mr. Bruce is here watching you, Mr. Wayne.
Oh, Mr. Bruce. You guys, tomorrow, Mr. Bruce is going to have a really cool digital storytelling class. I can't wait to see it myself.
All right. That'll do it, Mr. Wayne. We'll send it back over to you.
All right. Well, welcome everybody who's here. And if other folks show up, that'll be just wonderful. But we got to talk about the rules. Now, some of you have been on our Zoom classes earlier this week. So you kind of know how things go. But for those of you that may be new to us, we're on Zoom and we can talk back and forth and we can really share things here. It's a great tool, but we have to kind of figure out how we're going to use it. So everybody except me will be muted by Mr. Brian. And at times I'll ask questions or get your opinion on something. And all you have to do is raise your hand. Mr. Brian will see it, and then we'll get you unmuted so that everyone can hear what you have to share. So we'll go that route for the most part and see how it works. You know, this is our first time doing it, so we'll see how it works. So I was thinking about what story I wanted to share with you at this first storytelling session. And I thought, what would be a good story to share with young storytellers about how to tell stories? And I thought, the Scar story. That's right, the Scar story. It's one of my favorite stories. And the other thing I like about Scar stories is that everybody's got one. Everybody's got a Scar story. Raise your hand if you ever bumped your head. Raise your left hand if you ever skinned your knee. Or maybe anybody out there ever get any stitches? Scar stories are good stories because sometimes, you know, they're exciting and they have a sad part and maybe a happy part. Maybe, you know, there's just so much that can happen with a Scar story. And I happen to think my personal Scar story is pretty good. So that's why I like to use the Scar story. But there's another reason. And it's the best thing to think about with young storytellers. Every good story I've ever read or made up or heard, all of those stories have one thing in common. They have really good beginning, middles, and ends. Think about it. I mean, it seems simple, but boy, a good beginning and a good middle and a good end, your listeners will come away from the story with a, yeah, I got that. So I want you to think about this as I tell my story today. Beginning, middle, and end. Hopefully we can all see this. So not every story is the same. But for the stories we're going to be doing here for the next couple of weeks, here are a couple of things that you can think of that'll help guide you as you put your story together. In the beginning, you want your listeners to know who's in the story, where the story happened, and when. In the middle, you want to tell them what happened. And then you want to tell them what happened then. And then you want to tell them what happened then. But the important part is to try to tell them that in the order that it happened. You don't want to tell the first thing third, and the third thing seventh, and the seventh thing first. And then the ends, which are some of my favorite parts of some of my favorite stories. In the end, you want your listeners to have learned something. You want your listeners to have maybe seen something changed so that things were different from when that story began than they were when that story ended. Beginning, middle, end. So as I'm telling my story, I'd like you guys to think, okay, this happened in the beginning. This must be the middle. Wow, this sounds like an ending. And then we'll talk about it when I'm done. Everybody ready? Mr. Brian, are you ready?
I am ready, Mr. Wayne. Let's go.
Story time. Here we go. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. Some of you might know it's a real big city in the middle of the country, and it's right on the banks of the Mississippi River. Beautiful place. And I grew up on a street where we all had front porches, and all of the kids in the neighborhood, we kind of play on the block and go from one person's porch to the other person's porch. I really enjoyed it. The elementary school was right down the street, and we just had a great time. Now, In my family, there were 5 kids. There was, and you must remember this because these names are going to come up often. There was my older sister, Wanda, my big brother, John, we called him Junior. Me, I was the middle child, and my little brother, Bobby, and there was the baby, Donna. How many of you guys have brothers and sisters? Let me put it on gallery. You can see who's got brother. Ah, yeah. So who's the oldest? Ah, you're the oldest. And who's the youngest in your family? Who's one of the young ones? Ah, yeah, the young guys are always spoiled. You know, I tell you, you young guys get away with everything. But anyway, there were the 5 of us. And because I was the middle child and the second boy, I always got hand-me-downs. Hand-me-downs. You know what that means, right? Hand-me-downs. It's you getting someone else's stuff. And now you have to act like it's new, when it's been used. For instance, I got my brother's hand-me-down blue jeans. You see, my brother, he would wear his jeans and he'd run and jump and they'd get washed and torn, and then he would grow out of them. And my mama would take those jeans and then give them to me and say, "You got a new pair of jeans." I knew these were not a new pair of jeans. These were my brother's old jeans. I'd seen him running and jumping in the mud. I could see that the pocket was torn and it was faded at the knees. But being the second child, I got his hand-me-downs. I get his hand-me-down shirts. I got his hand-me-down winter coats. But by the time I got his winter coats, the pockets were always torn or buttons were missing, or they had 2 different types of buttons. It was horrible. Worst of all, and I'm almost embarrassed to share this, but I will share this with you. I got my big brother's hand-me-down underwear. That's right. I mean, by the time I got them, they were all bent out of shape and everything, but there they were. My mom would give them to me. There you go. And even worse than that, I got my brother Junior's hand-me-down bike. Horrible looking thing. It used to be red and white, but it was so rusted and crinkled, you couldn't see the paint anymore. And it had those old feet brakes on them, and the handlebar was bent and the mirror was busted, and you had to face this way to go forward. Horrible. Rusted spokes on the wheels, but it was the only bike I had. It was my brother's hand-me-down bike. Anyway, getting back to the neighborhood. You see, in the neighborhood, actually, these guys, they lived right next door to me, my best friends. There were 3 brothers. They lived right next door to me. And every day, we would get on our bikes and we would ride around the neighborhood, up and down the blocks, down the alleys, and we called ourselves daredevils. We were the daredevils. And we were daredevils because we would always dare each other. You know what I mean? Dare them. I dare you to go in that yard with that dog, or I dare you to jump off that garage roof. We did that all day. We dared each other. Therefore, we were the daredevils. And every day, the daredevils would get at the top of Gunlock Hill. Gunlock Hill. Yeah. Gunlock Hill, see, was this very steep hill that ran down from our street all the way to Newstead Boulevard, where there was a stop sign and these cars were going by. And it ran right in front of our elementary school, which was Gunlock Elementary. So the dare was to ride your bike as fast as you could down that hill, as fast as you could. And just before you got to the stop sign and the cars that were going by, just before you got there, you had to turn into the alley. You had to turn left into the alley at the other end of the school. I never won that race. Never. I mean, I was always in last place. I would even be behind a little Rainy, who was 2 years younger than me. You see, there we would be on that hill, and I'd be on that old hand-me-down bike, and we'd start down the hill, and we'd be getting faster and faster. My bike's clinking, and I can see the cars down there, and I would start to freak out, and I would put my brakes on first, which meant I went into the alley last. I never won that race. That was until the Christmas when I was 9 years old. I'll never forget it. Christmas morning, we would get up so early in the morning, and we all had our bedrooms upstairs, so we had to come down the stairs into the living room where the tree was lit. It's 6:30 in the morning, and you can already smell my mom cooking bacon, and there's the smell of the pine, and you can see the lights kind of glowing. And as I go down the stairs, I look, and right nestled against the tree is this beautiful blue 10-speed bike. Beautiful thing, the kind with the nice little skinny wheels and the hand brakes and the wires that go. And when you push it, it goes click, 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 click. And then I saw something on it, and I was looking because I figured, it's obviously going to be Junior's bike. I mean, it's new. I don't get anything new. But I'm rubbing my eyes as I'm walking toward the bike, and I see a big sign. It's right there. It says Wayne. Yes, Wayne's going to get a new bike. Not just a new bike, a new blue 10-speed bike. I can't tell you how excited I was, throwing my clothes on, because I had to run next door, right? Next door to tell the three brothers. Now, the three brothers next door, you had Big Bobby, you had Mikey, like I said, my age, and little Raymond. And I remember them all coming out onto the porch. And there I am with my beautiful, beautiful 10-speed blue bike. And they're all going, woo, woo, woo. I have never been so happy in my life. And then I kind of moved it and it went click, 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 click. And you know what we did? We rushed down to Gunlock Hill. I'll never forget it. There we were, the daredevils, right? At the top of the hill. And in St. Louis, at Christmas time, it gets a little cold. And so you could see your breath a little bit. No snow, but you could see your breath. And there we are at the top of the hill. You got Big Bobby, you got Mikey, me, little Rainy. And we started. You know how when you first start going down the hill, it's a little slow and it's a little wobbly, right? But as you go faster and faster, the wheels start to straighten out, and you start to hear that as you start going faster and faster. Well, usually at about this time, this is when I start looking at all those cars down at the intersection. I start thinking, oh my, usually that's when I stop. Not tonight. Not today. I'm on my new red, blue 10-speed bike, and we're going faster and faster and faster. But those cars are getting closer and closer. And I'm thinking, okay, I have to put my brakes on. And I go to put my brakes on, but little Rainy puts on his brakes. and me and Mikey and Bobby, we zoom by him. And I look back and I go, yeah, I am not going to be last. And we're going. And we're going quick. And those cars, I can almost see the people in the cars that are by. And I go, okay, this is good. This is the best I've had. I'm going to put on my brakes. And as I'm about to do just that, Mikey puts on his brakes. Me and Big Bobby zoom past him. And I'm thinking, this is amazing. Faster and faster, we're going closer and closer. The street is getting, and I'm thinking, this is great. I'm fine. I'm good with this. I mean, no one ever beats Big Bobby. He was older than the rest of us. He beat us at everything. So I'm thinking, this is the best day ever. And I go to put on my brakes. Big Bobby puts on his brakes. And I zoom right by him. I'm thinking, wow, I am going to win this thing. I'm going to win this thing. I can't tell you how close those cars seem as I'm getting closer and closer. But I can see the alley, and I'm going to turn into the alley, and I put on my brakes. But I forgot that I had handlebar brakes now and not those old foot brakes, And so I tried to put the foot brake on, which wasn't there, and I turned the bike left, and me and the bike slid on our side into the red brick alley, into a fence, up against a pole. In the cartoons where they show the birds tweeting and the stars, when they show that? That is true. That is what I saw. I saw birds, I saw stars. It took me a while to kind of gather myself, right? So I stand up and I pull the bike up, and the entire left side of my new blue 10-speed bike is ripped and crinkled to shreds. I mean, every inch of it. You can't even see blue paint. It's been just stripped off. And where it isn't stripped off, it's crinkled. And the wires are bent. The entire left side of this bike is destroyed. I'm thinking, oh my God, my mom is going to kill me. And then I feel something on my arm, and I look at my arm, and there is this big old gash, like right on my arm. I mean, it was so deep, you could see the white meat. I'm looking at it, and then it starts to bleed. I mean, it really starts to bleed, and it really starts to hurt. And I'm just about to cry, but just as I'm about to cry, into the alley comes Big Bobby and Mikey and Rainey. So I can't cry in front of them. So, I kind of have my eyes wide, and I'm watching, and I'm going, my mom is going to kill me. And Big Bobby and Mikey and Rainey, they all go, ooh, ooh. Crazy. But then Big Bobby comes up with an idea. Being the oldest, he came up with a lot of ideas, and some of them weren't the best ideas, but he came up with an idea because I certainly didn't have an idea. So he comes up with the idea. He goes, I got it. Don't worry about it. So he goes over to little Rainey, and he tears off the bottom of Rainey's t-shirt. He takes that, and then he wraps it around my arm, ties it off, and goes, that'll hold it, stop it from bleeding, you'll be fine. And then he goes, now, pick up your bike. And he says, what you have to do is all day long, every time someone sees you with your bike, you have to have your bike on your left side. So they only see the right side of the bike. Never let anyone see the left side of the bike. I'm thinking, oh, okay. I mean, that's the best thing I'd heard. So that's what I did. For the rest of Christmas Day, I kind of walked around, with my arm down and the bike kind of on my side so people could only see the right side. And actually, it worked. I got through the entire day. Now, that night, every night, there was a Christmas dinner. Every Christmas night at our house because everybody loved my mom's cooking, right? And so everybody was there. My uncles and cousins, Mama Belle was there, and let me see who else. All of my brothers and sisters and all of my father's folks. I mean, it was a big old table of folks, and we are just eating. Mom's making turkey and ham and sweet potatoes. I love the sweet potatoes, but my favorite was banana pudding. How many of you guys like banana pudding? Hey, Mr. Brian, I was wondering if anybody out there has ever had banana pudding. Raise your hand. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. That's important. Okay, I got you. So we just finished the first helping of banana pudding. I loved it. And I said, Mom, can I have some more banana pudding? And my mama says, yeah, baby, go on, get yourself some of that banana pudding. And so I reach over, to get the banana pudding, and blood drips down from my arm. Just drips down right onto the Christmas dinner table. And everybody's going, oh, everybody's just losing their minds over this whole deal. And my grandmother, I remember she said, oh, Lord, have mercy. I mean, she was just overcome. And my mom's going, boy, what happened? What happened to you all? And so right there in front of everybody, I had to tell them what happened. And then my mom says, bring that bike in here. And once again, right there in front of everybody, I had to bring my bike in and show them the left side of my bike. My mom went, oh, why didn't you tell me about that? When did this happen? And everybody's just going, oh. My mom said, young man, you put the rest of that banana pudding down. You go upstairs. You are grounded. Grounded. On Christmas night, I was grounded. What started off as maybe one of the best Christmases ever ended up being one of the worst. Grounded on Christmas night. But even worse, that story happened 54 years ago. 54 years ago. And yet, I still have the scar. Can you see it? Right there. That's right. I still have that scar. And I think that maybe if I had told my mother early on, like when the accident first happened, that she maybe would have put something on it, that stuff that really stings, but it makes it feel better eventually and heals. Maybe I would not have this scar today. That's my scar story. Thank you. All right. Raise your hand if you like that story. Yeah? So, Mr. Brian, could you maybe see if we could unmute some of our listeners and see what they remember about that story?
Of course. Here we go. Unmuted. All right.
Is that Gus?
Yeah.
Gus, how are you?
Good.
I've known Gus for a very long time. Thank you for coming. So we talked about how important beginning, middle, and end are with a story, right?
Yeah.
And I know you've written some good story. You've gone to theater camp before, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually,
So do you remember something at the beginning of that story that talked about who, where, and when?
oh, well, in my first play I ever did, it was like some magic treehouse play. At the start, we were like dinosaurs that came out of eggs, and we
Right.
sang a song what the world would look like and stuff. And I think that could be I was kind of like a beginner
You were a what?
dinosaur.
Ah, yes. Who else is out there? Is that Rebecca?
My brother.
Oh, is that your brother?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you remember? What stories do you remember the beginning of?
I don't know.
I don't know. Do you remember what happened at the beginning of my story?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, you were talking about how you got your brother like all whipped up like clothes and like underwear and like on your in like the bikes.
Yep, got
And
my
like
brother's hand-me-down. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you got a brand new cool bike, but then you fell and that brand new bike got scratched.
Oh, you were a good listener, man. So,
Mhm.
do you think I learned a lesson in that story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah? What do you think? What do you think?
I-
Either or. What lesson did I learn?
I think the lesson was like, if you get hurt, like if you break something or get hurt with something that you just got, you should tell your parents or somebody that you got hurt, and not just
Yeah.
don't tell them. It might get worse, maybe infected or something. When if you just
That's
might have-
exactly what. Do you think there was anything else I could have learned?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think?
That like start like small and like don't go straight up to like being really good. Like start like in like a straight line rather than like going like all the way towards.
You nailed it. New bike. I had not even ridden around the block in it, and the first thing I was going to do was go straight down Gunlock Hill. That was not smart.
Mhm.
Good stuff. So here's my thought for you guys. If you remember, we talked about beginning, middle, and end, but we talked more about not just my stories, but your stories. So I was wondering if maybe between now and next week, or even tonight, you could email us or send it into Instagram. Could you write us a story about when you got a scar? But you have to make sure that your story has,
Beginning, middle, end.
I think I already.
Absolutely. What was that?
I've gotten like, I got stitches on a broken foot. I wrote about one of those. I don't know which one. I think it was the stitches I read about.
Well, Gus, maybe you could share it with us next week, or send it in to the Marsh, and we could share it. I could read it for you, because we'd love for you guys to reach out. And you know what? You can do stories in many ways. You can write them out, or you can even draw pictures that show the story as well. But just everybody and your friends, we would love to hear your stories, and we'd love for you to send them in. Hey, I have had a really great time, and our 30 minutes went so quick. And I can't wait to get back together. We were going to keep doing this every weekday at 4 o'clock for the next while. So tell your friends that on Mondays, Marsh Youth Theater, you can do creative dramatics with Miss Verica, and she has a great way of creating stories right out of her head, right at the moment, and she lets you play along. On Tuesdays, we have Miss Rebecca, who does a dance class, really cool dance class, hip hop and world dance. On Wednesday, it will always be Mr. Wayne. Storytelling Time every Wednesday. On Thursdays, I was telling you guys before about Mr. Bruce is going to have this digital storytelling class that works about stop action, so he can show you how to do stop action film, but be able to tell a story. And then we're going to end on our Fridays with Dance with Miss Rebecca again. And that's going to go on every weekday at 4 o'clock. And I can't wait to get more and more friends coming and being a part of it. Remember to contact us at #Marsh Youth Theater. Email MYT Director @themarsh.org. This has been so much fun. I can't tell you how I've had, if I've had this much fun, especially since, Yeah, but this has made me forget all about that. I love sharing stories. And remember, any story worth telling is a story worth hearing. Take care and bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
Mr. Wayne.
you.